I gave him a hard time, but you know what? I'll let it slide
Yeah.
this one week.
He is
you,
part
brother.
of our team, and I always
you.
say that I've told Pastor Derek this. I said, I'm just going to lay this out there. If we were having I just imagine doing a kickball tournament or something. This is if I have somebody on my team. John might be the first person that I pick. John is our
John.
person. He's part of our team, and we just love him, and we're just so grateful for him.
Don't he clean up nice? Look at this suit right here. This is awesome.
Yeah.
So let's give one more round of applause for John as he brings the word today. Amen.
Thank you very much. Oh, quick one, real quick. Tuesday night, thank you very much for the gentleman that came to the men's Bible study. So we had a blast, and we did something men usually don't do. Everybody participated, and we talked so much that I had to tell Jake we didn't get it finished. So we're going to come back in 2 weeks on Tuesday night, and we're going to pick up where we left off and just have a blast, eat some more food, chit-chat. Are we allowed to chit-chat? We're going to chit-chat. So just being honest. So we're going to talk and have fun and just fellowship. So anybody that's interested, please talk to Jake, myself, one of the men here. Let me know if you are not invited or want to be involved. So Jake challenged me this morning, right? I made a couple jokes in my last sermon because I said, boy, if I ever use a table and I did good and I put both cell phones down, I was going to have all kinds of electronics up here and be referencing too many things, right? And I've got old school sermon notes out. And Jake said, you're a computer guy. You need to use your electronics. I said, So we're gonna shift up a little bit. One thing I really got attracted to over the last couple weeks was looking at what we've done as a group. To me, it started out with our senior pastor. And he came in and he had 2 sermons when he came to town and visited. The one that stuck out the most for me that came into this round was Then Jesus. Pastor Derek talked about 3 items. What Jesus did, he served. How Jesus did it, by the power of the Holy Spirit. And lastly, why did Jesus do it? And that was so none would perish. One of the things that he encouraged us to do was to find our place for our God time in the morning. He shared about how he had his place in the house when his kids were younger and where he would go off for his solitude and just worship and bathe and just really soak up the Lord. And how once in a while he would go to his area and he'd almost have to take a number because everybody wanted to be in there. The kids, the whole family were all going in there because that was such a special place and they could feel the power of the Holy Spirit in there. When I go back 2 weeks ago, Pastor Amanda dove into Embracing the Journey, Lessons from Palm Sunday. In her 3 points, she talked about the triumphal entry, celebrating God's sovereignty, the humble king, embracing servanthood, and the way of the cross, embracing sacrifice and redemption. Closing out, leading with Philippians 2:8, and being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on the cross. So we looked at that sacrifice. Coming up into last week, Pastor Jake brought in the resurrection. He brought the 4 messages of the empty tomb. We don't have to be afraid. Sin and its consequences are obliterated. Are you sure you weren't in the Marine Corps? He hadn't obliterated, right? That's a Marine Corps thing. I'm sorry. But anyways, the promise of a new life, resurrection, and immortality are possible. So following up from Easter Sunday, celebrating the resurrection, as I sat and meditated and looked, and what was provided was, he has returned, but He has returned, but they saw him do miracles, but they have the stories of his crucifixion, but they have the stories of his resurrection, but the people back then that got to see firsthand what was going on, all those individuals that got to live through that period of time while he was still walking the planet, even some of those that got to see him when he was raised from the dead for that short period of time, they got to see it with their eyes. They got to see it firsthand. But what about those that didn't? Because if I'm one of them, I'm thinking, I have the not seen. I didn't get to see him do it. I have the not now. He's not here with me any longer. He's not here anymore. What happened? I see all the celebration. I see the joys. I saw all these different things we went through. But I didn't get to experience it firsthand. One of the things that we grow on and follow through with, sometimes struggle a little bit, in 2 Corinthians 4:18, so we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. So I talked about and touched upon, everybody got to see what happened beforehand, if you knew him, if you were around, if you accepted, even if you were skeptical. You got to see the miracles. You got to see when he got upset, right? When he went into the church and he was frustrated and turned the tables over because they were using God's place of worship as a place of sale. In Psalms 139 and 23, search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. When do we get into anxious thoughts? Anxious thoughts represent the unknown. They represent wild imaginations. At least some of mine do. Anxious thoughts can represent lies that are told to us that go against what we know to be the truth, the Word of God. So one of the neatest little things, when I was a little kid, I'm very blessed my mom is here today with us. So once I got big enough for this little cup, once I got big enough for a Dixie cup, these were in the bathroom. These little things were like 32-ounce or 64-ounce sodas in our hands when I was a little kid, right? You're trying to figure out how to juggle it, get enough in your mouth to get the toothpaste out, or just sneak in to get a drink of water so you don't have to go all the way to the kitchen. When we talk about it, the reason why I bring this into play is as a child, this was stressful. I'm not a supplier as a kid. I'm not a parent. I'm not an adult. I don't have money at 5, 6, 7 years old, 8 years old, right? Looking to see, are they there? Is what I'm expectant of present and at my reach? As I'm still learning faith as a child, I haven't really put it together yet about this God thing. I haven't necessarily really took to and understand the whole Jesus Christ thing. But I know I can trust in my mom and dad to supply my needs. As you grow up a little bit, we go from what I was calling Dixie cup stress up to pop bottles or soda pop bottle stress, right? Because in my time as a kid, you could still collect the soda bottles, run to the store and get a nickel. And depending upon where you were with that nickel, if you had enough of those nickels, you could get a candy bar, a couple pieces of candy. We used to travel about an hour to 2 hours south of where I lived. And we'd go to the Working Man's Beach. And down at the Working Man's Beach, there were plenty of bottles around that you could get for soda pop and collect them to go get candy. Even better than that, we had one grocery store in the middle of the neighborhood, which didn't make sense because we always had to get in Grandpa's car or Mom and Dad's car or somebody's car to go to the grocery store. But this one grocery store was somehow in the middle of the neighborhood in the beach, and they had the oddest soda machine I'd ever seen. It dispensed a 32-ounce bottle of soda for the same price as a regular bottle of soda. And you got 10 cents back instead of 5 if you returned it. So you're definitely trying to drink all the soda so that you can get the money back to go buy candy, to get more sugar, to get more, right? And it was the only place that I saw that actually had a 5 and dime, where you could walk into the 5 and dime, and right when you walked in, it had that special place that made kids scream and yell and make parents go, really, did you have to put the candy thing right in the front of the door we walked in? And the prices are there advertised where it's easy to see because it's only 5 cents, 10 cents, 2 cents, 1 cent, 3 for 5. And if you really got lucky, you might have $1 to get something bigger. The stress was, one, making sure that stress was making sure that I was the one to get the most bottles. I wasn't the one necessarily getting the most bottles. Well, I'd kind of make sure I made the trips back and forth to that little grocery store if I could, or get Mom to take me or whoever was going to take me and be able to get enough money so that I could get enough candy so that I would shake when I'm at home eating candy and all these things, right? But that's what you knew. You didn't really relate to it. You didn't know at that age either of these things were stresses. They were challenges you faced at your age, but we weren't taught they were stress yet. So in the earliest years, a lot of not knowing how to combat challenging thoughts. In the earliest of early years, a lot of knowing how to combat challenging thoughts just wasn't known. Oh yes, that's right. If I would have had 1 Peter 5 and 7, first I'm going to go at the New Living Translation. Give all your worries and cares to God, for He cares about you. That seems really easy to understand. Not a lot of words, not big 50-cent words, dollar words, not these big, huge ones, right? But I don't always go and look at just one, right? When I look at the Amplified, and it says, casting all your cares, all your anxieties, all your worries, all your concerns, once and for all on Him, for He cares about you with deepest affection and watches over you very carefully. Nailed it earlier, right? The drum table got my attention because I grew up playing drums at one point, right? Very cool. But what's important to you is important to Jake. What's important to you and Jake's important to God. Why wouldn't our mother, father, why wouldn't our Father God want our best interests at heart and want to protect us? So as the age of maturity came along, Stress has graduated to new opportunities. I'm going to have to skip past the dating topic. We don't want to go there, right? But how about getting a license? License for me was super exciting because I had family members that lived out in farms. Even though I was only 10 miles from Washington, D.C., if you drove an hour and a half south then, you could be in a farm. Today you can't. Today feels like Pinellas County when you're south of D.C. an hour. Everybody's on top of each other, and traffic here is nothing compared to what it was up there. I'm so glad to be out of it. But the stress came in too. What about that car? I knew I'm going to get the license. I've been driving since somebody would let me sit on their lap and I could steer the wheel. I was the shortest kid in high school until halfway through the 11th grade. So when I did get my license, I didn't bring props. I did bring a couple little props, but when I did get my license, and my son will get a chuckle because I don't think I've told him this one, I had a pillow that was about yay thick and about bigger than any seat cushion here, right? Because if I didn't use the pillow, right, I can barely see over. I can see, but I can't command the vehicle. I can't control it fully. And even in my vehicle I had just last year, I even jacked that seat up a little bit so I could command over the whole vehicle if I needed to, instead of just looking just above it. I wanted to see clearly over it. To get to that vehicle, my parents had what we in Florida have everywhere, not in Virginia. In Virginia, there was clean, clear water back then. We didn't buy bottled water. That was silly. But somebody got a big 5-gallon jug of water. And so they started putting change in the jug every week. And sometimes, when banks were still open on Saturdays back then, you could go in and my mom or dad would get a roll of quarters to throw in there. Or they might throw a $10 bill or a $5 bill or something in there. And my son's going, "You copied somebody," right? We don't have as much change anymore, right? But we used to take and stack that all up and save it. Being motivated, I had my first job and Mom helped me, right, at some point, because we weren't flat up north delivering papers. Got that when I was 12 because nobody's going to hire this tiny kid in anywhere until I got older and grew some. Still wanting to make sure that I could do what I wanted to do and have what I wanted to have, and I wasn't going to settle for just what my father and mother would give me for a car. I eventually got a job in fast food. So I hit the 15 years old mark, and I could work, but I still looked like I was 10. So what we did, Arthur Treacher's Fish and Chips. If you lived down here for a while, they used to have one in Tampa. If you lived in Ohio, they had them all over the place back in the day. But for some reason, they decided you needed to put the cash register on top of a 4-foot table. So I would stand on a milk crate to be able to see on top of the keyboards, which wasn't too bad, except for you have to step down off the milk crate, go over here, get the food, come back to the next person, come down, and then drop the stuff down low over here. And so, still a fun deal. The cool thing that happened was through the 2 years of time that it took me working there, actually a year and a half, I believe, roughly, I was able to put enough money away to have more than my father and mother had put in. And I was able to buy my first car for $4,500 and had a blast. Being in IT, little side note, I can't tell you what it was because guess what? You're going to try and find out one of my passwords. So what I did do was at one point in time after I came out of the Marine Corps, I came home and I had a hot rod car and I blew the engine in it. So we got what we called back in the day a hoopty. And I got this old 1980 Caprice in 1993. It had 2 big rust holes in the back where the trunk was. So every time it rained, the back of the trunk would fill up with water. When you sit at a stoplight, somebody had adjusted the idle so heavy that is always trying to shoot off the line. I could barely hold the thing still. But it had that 350 in it, and that boat would just float down the street as fast as I'd let it go. So looking back, when I talked about those stresses, right? How different life would have been had I kept the 1-2 punch in my back pocket. Each time, if I would have known one of those stresses was coming, if I would have had something to stand on, the 1-2 punch probably should have been something like Proverbs 18:21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruits. The Amplified Version, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it and indulge it will eat its fruit and bear the consequences of their words. So they didn't put it on just the nice side, right? They expanded a little bit to tell you, if you're going around talking about the good stuff, the expectation is you're going to have the good stuff. If you're sitting stuck in the bad stuff and you're going to bring the bad stuff to life, guess what? You're going to dwell in some of that, and you're going to get exposure to some of those bad things. For that second item looking at, Matthew 21:22. And yes, there's a fair amount of verse today, right? That is common knowledge to a lot of people. I understand that. Matthew 21:22. And whatever you ask in prayer, you will receive, if you have faith. The Amplified Translation, and whatever you ask for in prayer, believing you will receive. Let's jump ahead, and I want to go into the core passage in today's topic, in today's information. And this timeline, we'll be looking at Isaiah 43:2. For now, I'll be referencing the New International Version. And while you will see verbatim, word for word behind me, is the expectation, there's some things that were important to me that were spoken out as I was studying. When you pass through the waters, there's action in that, right? The most important thing is pass, first of all. There's a movement. You're not stopping in the water, you're passing through it. Water is representational of a challenge. In this case, it's a smaller challenge. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep you over. The challenge got a little bit bigger there, right? And they're talking about it won't take you off your feet. It won't knock you down. It won't take you off course. Excuse me. Lastly, when you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. King Nebuchadnezzar. If we go into Daniel chapter 3, 16 through 18, which I did not put up, but if we go in there and we talk about the famous story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and when they get put in the fire, King Nebuchadnezzar put them in a furnace that he made 7 times hotter than normal. 7 times hotter than the normal flame is what he put them in. The story goes on to say how he would see 4 instead of 3 in the fire. The king would freak out after seeing a 4th in the fire and call them back out. As the story also goes, they come out untouched. Not only did they come out untouched, but if I get this much heat near my hair, the hair starts crinkling up and doing cool different things, right? And it starts stinking, and it starts burning. At that level of fire, at that level of what's going on in there, their skin should have been burned. They should have had boils, blisters, and different things. And surely the thing you cannot get away from is the smoke. We'll have a fire in our backyard with just a couple little logs. I mean, yay big. I could probably throw them to the back of the auditorium here, right? But they went in there. They're submerged in it. They're in it. All these things are going on. They're not touched. They're not burned. And they don't even stink. So Sunday afternoons, I routinely hear people talk about, hey, it's Sunday. We're going to go home. We're going to watch the game. We're going to take it easy. We're going to chill out on the couch, have a good meal, take a nap. Relax is the key ingredient on Sunday. A lot of times I always heard, this is our day of rest, right? The problem I have with Sundays is they lead into a Monday. Now, I don't dislike Mondays at all. I'm the guy that used to be on the elevator that you didn't want to see on Monday morning because I would be listening to Eric Thomas, who is one of the top motivational speakers in the United States, who is also a Christian minister. I'm sorry, he is one of the top motivational speakers globally and also a Christian pastor. So he would do a thing called Thank God It's Monday. And he would record it at 3 o'clock in the morning. That way it could be released around the globe and hit all these different countries at wake-up times, basically, is the way he set it up. So as I'm driving across the Howard Franklin Bridge from here, and I'm going all the way over to Brandon, by the time I get to work, and I don't drink coffee, by the time I get to work, I've had the equivalent of about 10 to 12 cups of coffee. And when I come out of my car and I go into Chase Bank corporate buildings, and we step on the elevator, and somebody says, good morning, I kind of come back about 3 levels higher than them, and not loud enough to make them hurt their ears, but I don't want to yell right now and pop the mic, right? But I would get very motivated, very excited, right? But Monday morning, Monday always got the bad rap. Sunday got bad rap part of the time. People started wearing Sunday out. Instead of enjoying what's rest of Sunday, it's almost like you were getting close to midnight. And as you're getting closer and closer to go over that hump at midnight, people start dreading Monday morning. Ooh, I hate Monday. What Monday do? Monday didn't do nothing to nobody. I hate Monday. I don't like it. I'm going into this. I'm going in. You start dwelling on those negative aspects. You start jumping into the bad. So, a couple weeks ago, when Amanda was preaching, she talked about you get your meal on Sunday, you get your knowledge on Sunday, you get your recharge on Sunday. And I've heard several preachers, pastors talk about it over the years, right? If you fill your tank up on Sunday and try to wait till next Sunday to eat again, there's a chance you're going to starve to death, right? So here comes Monday. Get up Monday morning. Things are great. We go out. I've got my Sunday waders on, right? Because I listened to Pastor Amanda. I got my notes. I got my little waders on that I put on from listening, and I'm going to learn. I'm confident maybe overconfident Monday because the message is so fresh. I took my notes. I got my notes to work with. I got a device, plenty of them, with YouTube, so I can go back and replay. I've got all these ways to touch it again, right? We get through Monday. Couple little hiccups here and there. Maybe traffic wasn't the best, even though I got a really short commute now. Maybe a little bit of frustration. Maybe some different little things were going on. Not a big deal. So we go on through it. Tuesday morning comes. Oh, hold on. It's Monday night, right? I get to relax. I'm back at home. I take my waders off and put my guard down on the couch, or I put it in the bedroom because I don't need it right now. I'm at home and can relax, right? Get up the next morning. I hit snooze a couple times. I was a little tired. I stayed up a little bit late. Whatever. I hit snooze a couple times. I'm a little bit off my schedule. I got to wake up my son for school. I don't know if he goes to sleep right away when we shut the doors. I'm not sitting and monitoring everything he does like that. So sometimes he doesn't want to wake up. He wants to hit snooze. There's only one problem. This United States Marine doesn't like to be snoozed. It's time to get up. I'm up, everybody's up, right? So the little things pile on like that. But they're just little things, and they pile on. I'm starting to wear down a little bit. I'm not being attentive to what's going on necessarily. I'm just handling these little things one by one, or 5 by 1, or 1 by 5. We hop in the car, no big deal. I live a mile from here. We go and hit the two stoplights to get here, but I don't get the first one. Coming up the road, once in a while happens, not often, forget a lunchbox. Once in a while happens, forget to check the weather, forget an umbrella. And in the school next door, they get the opportunities to walk between the buildings and get some fresh air, but that also means if it rains, if they don't have an umbrella, they're going to get wet. Shouldn't be a big deal. It's only a mile away, mile and a half at the most. But I'm accustomed to a mile away being an hour now because my new norm, I'm not driving all the way to Brandon. We get here, no problem. Drop them off in Before Care. I get to say hi to people, and I'm going to run back out. They're not here. They're late. It's stacking up. It's getting more aggravating. Stress is coming. Stress is piling up some. Get back out. Now I've got to contend with school buses to get back home. That's normal, but if I know my time frame, which I do, I know where the school buses are and I know how to dodge them. But I'm off. I'm off time. I've missed every rhythm I've had. And I've got to come back into the rhythm I know I dislike because I'm going to hit the other school around the corner, and I'm going to hit their bus lines, and I'm going to hit the cop that stands out front and all these other things. The problem that comes into play is I haven't spoke of. If you know, once did I talk about my notes. Not once did I talk about studying. Not once did I talk about revisiting anything from Sunday. I haven't listened to anything. Yes, I listen to some Christian music in the car. Yes, we'll go and read. We read together at night before bedtime. But by the time we get into our biblical reading at night, it's too late. I've done the damage. I've yelled at somebody. I've pointed at people. I've yelled. I've done whatever. I've raised my voice. I might have upset my son. I might have hurt his feelings. I might have hurt other people's feelings, right? Because what I've got is those waders I'm supposed to be taking care of that's going to keep me protected when I'm going through these waters, when I'm going through the little puddles or that river. I haven't taken care of them this week, and now they got holes in them. And the way I'm going to repair them is to do what I should have been doing the whole time, and that is I need to go back and look at my notes. I need to go back and read. I need to go back and study. I need to somewhere refill myself. By refilling myself, I am also keeping the holes from taking place. I'm keeping everything properly mended. So in case you don't know, Psalm 46:1. God is our mighty fortress, always ready to help in times of trouble. Always ready to help. So I just need to reach out to God. And I told you I could do that by studying notes, reading the Word, going to my quiet place, going to my closet and pray, or just sit down and be quiet and listen, be still. All those steps are options I talked about to rebuild the waders. God doesn't want to hear from you only on Sunday. He wants to share time with you during the week. He wants to see you in the Word. He loves hearing you in worship. He wants to hear from you daily. And in order to hear, for you to hear daily, you must spend time with Him. Pastor Derek would probably ask if he was talking to you, did you find your God place? Did you find your God first place that he talked about a couple weeks ago? Would be one of the things, if you were talking one-on-one, he may question about. So, Pastor Jake, so if I could have a bonus set of waders for this week, what I'd ask you to do is, for those of you like me that like to take notes and write things down, I'm going to ask you to pause for a second. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cover another verse right now, another area for a moment. And what I'll do is I will have the slide put up afterwards, so that if you want to capture it afterwards, you may do so. But what I'd like you to do is to be able to catch it on the first delivery. I'd like you to be able to be at peace and relax and not worry about if the pen didn't write, if there was some lint on the paper. These are all things that mess up. I'll take my jeans and write on the inside of the jean when the pen stops writing to get that ball to roll again. So if you would for me, I'm going to adjust this a little bit. And I should say, not really for me, but for you and those around you, whether they be here or they be in your walk, whether they be somebody witnessing to you or they are somebody you are witnessing to, whether they set the example for you or you set the example for them. What I would ask is just take a peaceful moment and relax right now. Relax in your way. If you need to relax your shoulders, if it makes you comfortable to bow your head and close your eyes, feel free to do so. I remember teaching my son at 2.5 years old how to jump in mud puddles, how to play in them. We didn't care about the mud. We didn't care about the water getting on the shoes or clothes. We cared about joy. We cared about building memories, at least I did as a father, right? I just wanted to download that love to him. I want him to know that it was okay to play and have fun with no need to worry about stress. We could forget about a Dixie cup. We could forget about a driver's license, a car, waiters, house payment, car payment, cell phone payments, any of these, electric bill, all these different things that may be. I came in and practiced yesterday, and I had it all lined out. Even Friday night, I had the intro to the sermon written out, and I was so happy. I got the closing portion while my son and a friend were playing in a bounce house in a big warehouse, running around. And I was like, man, I got that too. I got the entry and the exit. I write papers, but okay, this is cool. One of my buddies was teasing me yesterday. He said, John, are you going to rewrite the sermon again at 2 o'clock in the morning? Term papers, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. This thing at 2 o'clock in the morning. You going to sleep? I said, I'm not doing all that tonight. I've already got this lined out and that lined out. This is going to be a good thing. I'm going to take it easy Saturday. I'll do some working. I'll come up and practice. I'm going to go home and we'll be good. What if the beginning was the end and the end was the beginning? What if you're not finished yet? Why are you still here right now? Are you really here to hear me? What's your purpose? Where are you going? Is your next purpose when you walk out the door? Is your next purpose when you get up in the morning and God puts that unknown person in your path? And that is the person that is your next. That person is the but now. I didn't get to see it. You are the vehicle. You are the provider. You are their eyes to Jesus. You are the example. Psalms 27, 1 through 4. The Lord is my light and my salvation. So why should I be afraid? When evil people come to devour me, it didn't say mess with me, it didn't say bug with me. It said come to devour me. When my enemies and foes attack me, they will stumble and fall. Though a mighty army surrounds me, my heart will not be afraid. Even if I'm attacked, I will remain confident. The one thing I ask of the Lord, one thing, is to live in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, delighting in the Lord's perfection and meditating in his temple. David said delighting in the Lord's perfection. The Oxford Dictionary read, please someone greatly. Merriam-Webster reads, a high degree of gratification or pleasure. But they just weren't finished to stop there. They felt the need to simplify it even further. They did it with 3 letters, J, O, and Y. Joy. have joy in the Lord's perfection. So, where are you today? Is there a missing piece of that perfection? Because I know I strive, and I've got some gaps, and that's okay, as long as we keep striving. So, pause for 1 second. Adam, thank you very much to those online today. We appreciate you joining us. Please feel free to check us out on Facebook and the other avenues that Pastor Jake shared earlier today. I appreciate being able to say thank you to them, and I appreciate them being present. Sometimes I get a little bit to where I'm ready to wrap my arms around my family, the ones that are here closest to me the most, the one that support me the most.